Hi friends, welcome to the next episode, and here we say handle with geotechnology, how geotechnology can be utilized for disaster management. In the last episode we have seen the power of GIS combined with remote sensing to understand the tax assets, to understand the land assets and increase the tax revenue as far as a separate LSGD, the local self-government, is concerned. So, here we are going to discuss about the capacity and capability of the geotechnology as it is commonly known in the present day, that is GIS, GPS, remote sensing, satellite images and the allied disciplines. So, how disaster management can be effectively done using this geotechnology. So, that is what you can say. This episode attempts to put in line the application of GIS technology and allied disciplines in effectively managing the disaster in its various phases. We know that disaster management cannot be done on all of a sudden. So, there are different phases, there are various phases associated with that. So, how effectively the GIS technology and its allied disciplines can be utilized in managing the disasters. So, we know that as far as disaster management is concerned, it involves the mitigation, the preparedness, response and disaster recovery. This is common for any kind of disaster. So, we will see the different steps involved and how the GIS can be incorporated, or how effectively the geoinformatics or the GIS technology can be effectively incorporated in these steps, say mitigation, preparedness, response and disaster recovery. So, before that we will see what is meant by mitigation as far as a disaster management system is concerned. Mitigation is nothing but it is the emergency, it is the discipline, or it is the discipline of dealing with and avoiding risks. Okay, that is discipline of dealing with and avoiding risk, both are important. Okay, how once a risk has come, so how we can deal with that, or how we can make it sure that it will not be repeated in the future, so that we can avoid that. So, it is a discipline that involves steps taken to contain or reduce the effects of an anticipated or already occurred disastrous event. So, that is important, that is what are all the steps taken to contain or reduce the effects of an anticipated or already occurred disastrous event. So, that part is that part is known as the mitigation in a disaster management cycle or a disaster management system. And the second stage, or the second thing, the preparedness, is nothing but it is how we change behavior to limit the impact of disaster events on people. So, say for example, we know that drought is a particular disaster. So, that comes in areas, especially in that is much of the area in India. So, we can prepare or we can change our lifestyles in such a way that water conservation is becoming a priority. So, we can adapt to the climate change, and we know that the groundwater levels are going so fast, that is they are declining in a fast pace. So, we can adapt to that. So, even if groundwater reduced to the half of its that is what was the groundwater level last year and how far it has gone down. So, if we adapt to that, so if we change our lives, if we change our lifestyle, if we are ready to that, we can we can face a disaster, that is a drought, if it comes in near future. So, that is actually the preparedness, that is how we change behavior, so that we can limit the impact of disaster events on people. So, that stage is considered as the preparedness in the disaster management cycle or in the disaster management system. And then comes the response. That is, then what do you mean by the disaster management in a disaster management system? What is meant by response to that? It is nothing but an effective plan for public health and other personnel during a disaster and that would outline activities designed to minimize the effects of the catastrophe, because there will be people, there will be NGOs, there will be volunteers who are working with that. So, there should be an effective plan for public health and other personnel during a disaster, and that will outline the activities. So, what is actually and what is the result of that? These efforts can be summarized as closely situation analysis and response. Okay, that is actually more related to the health issues or more related to the health personnel who are working with working with in the what you can say in the scenario of a disaster. And the next stage or the next step or in the next term is nothing but the disaster recovery. The aim of the recovery phase is to restore the affected area to its previous state. That is, just as the term indicates, it is the recovery. That is how it was before the disaster hit that particular region, and to come back, to make a comeback, to make the people or to strengthen the people or to provide the infrastructure so that the entire area is recovering from that particular disaster. So that is that particular disaster, and the aim of the recovery phase is to restore that affected area to its previous state. And recovery efforts are concerned with issues and decisions that must be made after immediate needs are addressed. Okay, that is to be there. The recovery can be done, but before that some immediate needs are to be addressed. Then only going back to the previous stage and all will take place. So these are all the things when we consider a disaster management system is concerned. Okay, so now the disaster management is done by following steps. Okay, so what are all the steps that will be involved as far as disaster management is concerned? So first step is that planning and analysis. Then situational awareness. So in the situational awareness, the space and time factors. So when we say the space and time factors, that is very important, because where it has happened, what is the locality. So if a landslide has happened in a glaciated region, or if that has happened in another area which is where there is no glacier, only some sedimentary strata is there, or if it is a hard rock terrain, so the impact of the disaster will be entirely different. So that is what we say the spatial, that is the spatial factor. Then time, on what particular time it has happened, whether it was during a monsoon the landslide has happened, or it is a glacial avalanche that has taken place, as in the case of the Himalayan terrain and all. So the time is also important. On what particular time, whether it is followed by rain, or if that was triggered by a cloud burst. So what are all the factors involved? So that is the situational awareness is important. Then comes the data management. That is time bound analysis and dissemination of output to various levels. Say like, so suppose a warning has come, that is as far as that may be about any disaster, so that has to be properly given to the concerned persons. It can be including the public, the decision makers, the administrators and all. The communication system should work properly in such a way that the available data is communicated properly. And then comes the field operations. Communication is done, every infrastructure is ready, but people have to go to the field and do the work. So that part is coming under the field operations. Then in managing disasters, what GIS can do, why GIS can be implemented in an effective way, that is what we will examine now. So the GIS can bring together our complete data and knowledge and making it accessible. So that is the particular capacity of GIS, that is, as we have seen, that how time and space is important as far as a GIS is concerned. GIS can handle with spatial data, that is an important thing as far as the technology is concerned. So bringing together of complex data and knowledge and making it accessible to all. We have seen that many stakeholders will be there at that particular time. So it must be available to all. So a single platform is there, and that is GIS. That is the first thing. Then better decisions and informed action, that is there, because GIS is a platform which can do the analysis, time bound analysis is possible. So better decisions and informed action. Say, that is if I exemplify that, or if I exaggerate that, so it will be like this, that is suppose if the chance for a flood is imminent and people are waiting, or people have to be evacuated from the river banks. So a monitoring system is already in place. So we will come to know that how the water level is rising, so in which way the water will be flowing. So that will be monitored, and that will be the time bound monitoring is being done. So the data will be coming, just like we use the GPS and the allied system to control or to use in a traffic. In the same way, that information, that better decision can be done, and that can be the actions can be made informed. Okay, that is they will be informed, the people will be informed, and the better decisions can be made. Maybe before this the water level is increasing in a river, and people may be, that is the proposed evacuation may be in a particular route, but the result that is an information comes that there are chances that the river bank may be broken or the water may flow through that particular area at any time. So, that evacuation route can be avoided. So, a real time monitoring is possible with the GIS, and that will help in better decisions and that will aid in informed actions. Then comes the many benefits are provided by using this GIS. One thing is the just what we have seen, that is the better decisions and informed action, and many other are there. Then understanding is another important thing, that is it is not easy, that is without seeing a situation, that is just by getting or just by using phone calls or getting information over phone or something, it is not easy to that is control the situation or to manage the situation. So, understanding, that is visually seeing the situation, it will be very that will aid in managing the situation. Then efficiency is another area why GIS has got an upper hand in that. Then cost savings. Then as we have seen, that is the analytical capability of GIS, the improved analysis is possible. Then as far as planning is concerned, an effective planning can be done. Then better decision making, and that will help in better communication, better collaboration and better coordination. So, these are all the advantages or the merits of GIS when we use it for managing disasters. Now, we will examine how it can be utilized for planning and analysis. GIS is the most complete information system for modeling, analyzing spatial data and displaying community vulnerability. And now with the now we can glue this technology to the mobile phones also. So, people have been given the different apps which they can use. So, an important thing is that the GIS is an important technology that can help in modeling and analyzing spatial data. So, that spatial data part is important. So, if the situation continues like this, so for example, if we are a tsunami warning is being given, so if the storm is that is going to hit this a particular country, a particular coast at this particular speed, up to what height the waves may rise. So, that is a kind of modeling. So, that is earlier it was restricted to the supercomputers of the scientists or the research people, but now it is possible with the free softwares and the apps that are available. Everyone can see that, or every interested person can see that. So, that analysis can be done, the modeling can be done. So, that is important as far as planning is considered, and the community vulnerability is very much visible now. So, how far it is vulnerable, is it safe to stay back in this particular region, or how far the effect will be there, like that we can model and analyze. Then when we identified hazard locations with critical infrastructure, that is with critical infrastructure, that is when we identified hazard locations, we can plan in a proper way. So, that is also possible, because in all these cases it is important that the spatial data plays a major role, a critical role, a crucial role is played by spatial data. Otherwise just by data sets in terms of tables and books or records, we cannot take any decision. Now with all topography, all geomorphology, all geology, all geography, everything is visible now in terms of maps, in terms of spatial data. So, that planning is becoming more significant now, planning is becoming more easy now. Okay. Then processed GIS model can be useful for determination of event impact and necessary mitigation requirement. So, processed GIS model can be useful. Okay, GIS can model that first, and then in this way if we go, what can be done, or how we can how it can be in future, how the mitigation is possible. So, that are all visible. Then preparedness is important when disastrous event occurs. On analysis of risk and hazards is beneficial in emergency management program. That is analysis and preparedness that can be utilized. That is, we have seen that as far as disaster management is concerned, planning is necessary, mitigation is necessary, and preparedness is necessary, and recovery also. So, in all these phases, GIS has got a major stake, a major say in all these phases. So, disaster management can be that is in an effective manner that can be carried out by using GIS. Then in a further step, in a higher level, event modeling can be carried out to understand potential incident effects. Okay. That is, if we assume that, or if we know that the normal rainfall in a particular region should have been like this, but due to cloudburst or some abnormal phenomena, the rainfall has exceeded some historic maximum. So, we can that is we can forecast that that is a flood may be there or any kind of disaster that may follow. So, that modeling can be carried out and that will understand the potential incident effects. So, which are all the low lying areas that may be affected by such a sudden flood. So, that can be modeled and that precautions can be made. Then locate values at risk areas for prevention or mitigation needs. That is, if the situation continues, if the flood situation continues, which are all the vulnerable areas, which are all the values at risk areas that can be identified and proper prevention and mitigation actions can be carried out or that can be taken. Then comes, that is, we can identify natural and technological hazards. So, that is also possible. That is how if the natural hazard is going to come or natural disaster is going to come or technological hazard is, if anything is there, that is the technological hazards, or we can say that it is a anthropogenic hazard or man-made hazard and natural hazards. So, this can be identified and these precautions can be made. Then it will help in understanding the geographic distribution of incidents. Earlier it was not possible, that is, we know that at a particular place it has happened, another place also it has happened, and we did not know the geographical connection. Now we know, now it is possible that we can link that over the map, and just like earlier, that is, we used to make paper maps. Now it is not necessary, we can use that digitally, and GIS can be utilized for that geographic distribution of incidents. And then for mitigation efforts we can plan accordingly. So, that is another area, or for planning and analysis, in all these ways we can utilize GIS. Then coming to the response and recovery phases, that is, planning is a very important component of disaster preparedness. So, planning is very essential, and for that, in a cost effectiveness, that is, cost and effectiveness of the disaster response and recovery are tied to the extent and appropriateness of the planning. That is, all the other phases, all the other steps are that is, they are very much linked to the planning. How far appropriate the planning part has been carried out. So, the further steps will be depending entirely upon that, or they are very much closely associated with that. So, in all this, so starting from planning we have to be careful, and for that planning we will be utilizing spatial data. So, that spatial data will be helpful. So, that spatial data can be effectively handled if a GIS platform is utilized. Then for planning, response and recovery, what are all the imminent disasters, or what are all the disasters that may occur. So, just like floods, in the case of floods, earthquakes, the tsunamis that may be generated by a submarine earthquake, then the hurricanes or different types of storms, then hailstorms can also be there, windstorms can be there, and some special events may be there, and the forest fire or the allied or different types of disasters. So, what type of planning is required, what type of response may be required, and how recovery can be carried out, or recovery actions can be carried out in all this. So, that will be different. So, a situation analysis may be required. So, the situational awareness is a must. So, in all these cases. So, that situational awareness is provided by GIS. Disaster and emergency management, in this case, in the case of disaster and emergency management, situational awareness is an essential thing. So, how that situational awareness is achieved? So, that can be achieved by means of seeing it or a visual representation of the entire region. So, how that is possible? We can use the maps, we can use real time that is monitoring of the different data sets, we can use satellite images. Now, we know that is all climatological and meteorological data sets are utilizing satellite technology, and every 6 hours we are getting the meteosats or other different satellites are providing the weather and climate in different regions. So, that kind of real time monitoring can be there, and that will provide a situational awareness. Then GIS techniques plays vital role to provide locational information of the event, that is, where is the event happened and what is happening exactly in real time. That is what I told. In real time monitoring is possible by means of the technology. It can be GIS, it can be GPS, it can be the satellite technology that is being done, and all telemetric details are collected. There is no need to go to a particular site which has got the risk of a disaster. So, we need not go there, or telemetric measurements are being taken. It can be the rainfall, it can be the water level, or it can be any type of the terrain parameter that can be measured remotely. So, that data set can also be incorporated in order to understand the situation. So, for that GIS is the technology. Then the next case is also by linking people process spatial information, situational awareness is established. Okay, because now different applications are possible by means of mobile phones. Different apps are glued to the mobile phones and people are using that, because one person can map. So in this particular region, this is the situation now. So that another person who may try to go there, he will avoid that movement will be checked. So in that way, so GIS map interface is important in handling emergency condition. Different people are, because people may be making use of that, at the same time data is being generated. So that data generation will help some other people who may be looking at that particular area, so that the user will become the data generator also. So that that is a give and take policy is being done. So that situational awareness is done in that case using GIS. Then the next step is the data management. So to achievement of preparedness, gathering of information and its advanced data storing is important. So that is also very essential, that is to achievement of preparedness. In the next step of preparedness, that is gathering of information and its advanced data storing is important. How we have to be prepared for a particular disaster that may be there. There are chances that a disaster may happen. So for that, how far we can prepare. So that preparedness can be done by means of information gathering and storage of that. In GIS, integration of information from other sources is also possible. GIS solution is standards based, that is important, so that anybody who is working with that is just like, so for example, there are different maps are available, so people may be working with maps and GIS. So a standard, when a standard is followed, that is if we are using everywhere, if a GIS is utilizing say 1:50,000 map, so it is very easy to measure that, measure the distances and to take decisions. Suppose if somebody is using 1:25,000 map, another person 1:50,000, another one is using 1:5,000, then it will be difficult for decision making. But that is not there in the case of GIS, because GIS solutions are all standard based. Okay. Then accurate cataloging of GIS data provide useful information during emergency conditions. That is, people can make use of the data set, people can catalog it so that they can utilize it for other, that is the different people working in the same area, that they can utilize that. So cataloging of GIS data is also possible and that will provide useful information. Then coming to the field operations that are associated with emergency situations or disaster management. Field data is very important in GIS applications and mobile GIS provides crucial information. How that is possible? An excellent example is the Bhuvan application or the Bhuvan app that was created by the ISRO during the Chennai flood of 2015. They made a Bhuvan application and they publicized that through newspapers and online media that this particular application is possible, and this particular application is available, so that people could download that and they put that into their mobile phones. And what is the flood condition in a particular region now, whether it is Nungambakam or Tambaram or whatever it is, the different regions of Chennai, what is the flood situation that was mapped by the inhabitants of the city and also by volunteers and also the military and other forces. So that created a real-time monitoring. Otherwise it was not possible, because vehicles were stopped, airport was closed, no traffic was allowed, no traffic was possible at that time. So this kind of data, that is the field work, was also carried out by using the mobile application or the mobile GIS that was provided to the users or what we can say the affected people. So mobile GIS provides crucial information as far as field operations is concerned. Then field teams captures information and send back to user. So they use, field teams are capturing information and they are sending that. That means there is maybe people may be trying to vacate a particular region and they may be trying to travel through a particular road. Then the field teams understands that, or they realize that that road is not there now, or that has been damaged, no traffic is possible through that route. So they will send back that information to the people who are resorting to move through that particular place. So that will be avoided. So ground information useful for recognizing actual event condition, that will be done through field operations. So that can be easily communicated using a GIS. Then new data can be sent to operation teams in field where disaster occur. So they have the information possible for protecting lives and providing safety to people. Say just like a flood is happened, So, and is there any chance that, or is there any new message or new information that again larger, that is again chance for larger rainfall in that particular region is possible or that is available. So, that can be sent to the operation teams in field, so that they can take precautionary measures. So, they have the information possible for protecting lives and providing safety to people. Whether it's response or recovery phase, mobile GIS provides right information, that is the real time monitoring. So, that is provided by the GIS. And when we consider the disaster management, there are certain common factors. So, now we will discuss, or now we will see what are the common factors as far as the disaster management is concerned. So, in that we will see the common objectives first. So, what are all the common objectives? First thing is protection of life and property, that is the first and foremost thing as far as any disaster management is concerned. Protection of life and property. Then the second is provide critical and timely information. Provide critical and timely information. That is very important, because then only any kind of planning or response or whatever it is that can be there. Timely and critical information, gathering of that, communication of that, everything is required. Then provide the appropriate and timely response. If somebody is asking for help, that should be provided. So, that timely response is important. Provide for basic life support needs. We know that especially drinking water and fresh water. Fresh drinking water will be a major thing. Then of course, for rehabilitation camps or any kind of things that has been set up, food is also important. That kind of basic life support needs have to be provided. Then provide for expedited recovery. That is another thing, that is another common objective of any kind of disaster management. Then seek improvements and expand capacity. So, at any time, at the beginning it will be very less, the affected people may be very less, but at any point of time that may be needed to expand. So, improvements and expand capacity, will be another common objective of any disaster management plan. Then coming to the common challenges, planning and mitigation to all phases of the disaster. That is the common changes, because it will not be possible, that, but we have to foresee that, and planning and mitigation to all phases of the disaster, that is planning and mitigation, readiness, response and recovery. In all the phases, that is the planning and mitigation is necessary. So, these are all the common challenges comes in every phase, that challenge will be there. Then the common needs, what are all the common needs? One thing is the timely acquisition of information. Just like the timely the requirement of information is there, timely acquisition of information, especially in the case of field operations, that is a must. Then shared and combined information, that is also important. Getting an information and sharing that is very important. Then these are all the common needs. If somebody doesn't do that, that will help the entire team or the entire area. Then compartmentalize information. That is, if a person is having the information, that has to be, if that person or that particular team is not able to communicate that to different people, different teams, so it has to be compartmentalized. Then multiple information sources and arrays, that is necessary, because if there is a mobile tower is lost or that has been damaged, some other wireless system or some other system has to be in place. So, multiple information sources and arrays have to be arranged. Then secure and dependable dissemination of information. Secure and dependable dissemination of information is necessary. No false information should be communicated at any point of time. So, it should be secure also. Then appropriate use of information technology is also important. No false information should be sent again. So why all these are there? So, in all these phases, a desired outcome is there. A desired outcome in all these phases is that one is common information framework. That is, when we use this common information framework is an outcome. Then base information for any kind of disaster that come, let it come or not, base information should be there, real time information should be there. Then simulation capacity, that is some kind of modeling that must be there or that must be ready. So, that then only the modeling, how if it goes like this, what are all the areas to be affected, or if the affected area, how fast we can recover that. So, that kind of simulation can be there, the simulation capacity should be there. Then the most important thing is that uniform data standards should be utilized by different people who are in that disaster management activities. Uniform data standards should be followed by the people. Now, so how we are utilizing the technology of remote sensing or the satellite imagery in the disaster management thing. First is use of high resolution imagery, that is imperative in disaster management, because we have to visualize the entire terrain, we have to visualize the entire region. So, for that high resolution imagery is imperative, because otherwise if we are using a small scale or small resolution imagery, so that will be, we will be missing certain areas, we will be missing majority of the region. So, that should be avoided. So, that use of high resolution imagery is imperative in disaster management. Then the high resolution satellite imagery provides vital information to disaster managers for strategic planning. Say like if you have got a recent satellite imagery, so from that we could identify which are all the areas inundated by the flooding or the rainfall. So, which are all the areas where the flood water has not yet reached, or is there any chance that this area will be protected because it is a high terrain, like that. So, the satellite images, especially the high resolution satellite images, provides vital information to disaster managers. The disaster managers can utilize that for disseminating into the different teams they are there. So, the strategic planning is possible by means of the high resolution satellite images and also for real time monitoring. And the satellite image taken after a catastrophe, that will reveal the existing state of the area, blocked roads, vulnerable areas and all. So, the pre-disaster and post-disaster images can be utilized for change detection, and the damage assessment can be done more effectively and quickly. So, how? And we can just elaborate on that. That is the post-disaster and pre-disaster images will provide the change that has come to that particular area. So, how is that change occurred, or what is the reason for that particular change? Is there any area that was, even though it was vulnerable, is there any reasons by which it was escaped or by which it was safe? So, even all those ideas or all those things can be identified by closely examining the high resolution satellite images. Then how GIS can be applied for all this, or what are all the areas where especially the GIS application is there? So, first thing is forecasting and tracking. So, in any disaster these two things are necessary, forecasting and tracking, especially in the field operations and all. Then the demographic analysis, what is the population density, what much people have been affected, what type of people are dwelling in that particular area, what is the house, because what type of people in the sense, what is the settlements, that is whether it is all flat complexes or is that are all huts or the small type settlements. So, that are all necessary. What type of how many people have to be evacuated in the case of a disaster. So, that kind of demographic analysis can be easily done by means of GIS. Then flood status visualization, that is the real time monitoring that we have seen. Then the utility planning and response, the logistics have to be applied, the logistics have to be there. So, the response. Then command and control in the case of, that is the operations. Then damage assessment, that is another area. Evacuation and rescue. Then the use of different satellite imageries, that is for in all these the applications so far we have seen. So, the use of different satellite imageries are there, or the use of different imageries are the different satellite images can be utilized with the help of GIS application. Then preparation of base map of different themes using satellite imageries. Then thematic maps such as hydrogeomorphology, slope map, terrain map and digital elevation model generation in GIS, because the terrain evaluation is a must, because what are all the areas in which the disaster may take place, or what are all the areas in which the terrain will help in identifying the disasters. So, terrain evaluation is a must. So, it is used for disaster planning. The different thematic maps thus created from remote sensing satellite images can be utilized for disaster planning. Then macro and micro level maps used for identifying vulnerability and threat conditions, that is also possible by means of the satellite images. Then identification of safe locations and zones for rehabilitation, that is also possible. Then road and location maps used for finding alternate routes, shelters and locations. Then planning of evacuation and operation, management of rehabilitation and post disaster construction, suitable locations identifying scientifically for construction of houses and shelters, so that they are not affected in view of a further disaster. No construction areas identified and the rehabilitation of existing people can be done. Hospitals and medical facilities identification for injured people. So, different types of areas that are required as far as a disaster is concerned. Just like in certain areas are there where no construction is possible. So, such no construction areas can be identified. Hospital and medical facilities identification for injured people, which is the nearby hospital. Maybe a volunteer who is new to that particular area, he should know that in his mobile screen it should be available. This is the nearby hospital, so that he or she can take the affected people to that particular hospital. That kind of routing and tracking can be easily done. So, these are all the different GIS applications in the case of a disaster management. So far we have discussed about the application of GIS and remote sensing in disaster management, and that is why the geotechnology, that is, we can handle this disaster management with care if we are utilizing the geoinformatics or the GIS and remote sensing. I think the application of this, when we say handle with geotechnology, this is clear now. So, this is about the application of geoinformatics for disaster management. So, thank you for watching. We will be meeting again with another episode in the GIS series. Thank you.